Good morning, everyone. Well, we're back in the garden again, so it must be story time. Going to spill the tea about how I ended up studying nutrition in my mid-50s. So in my early 40s, I started to have quite a few symptoms. They were all really different and all really random, and I never connected them all together. So I had an increased issue with allergies, food intolerance. I had lots of stomach problems. I'd been diagnosed with IBS as a teenager, and they just got worse. Bloating, diarrhea, really horrible abdominal pain. I was tired all the time. I've just felt generally unwell, and I was having some mental health issues. So, I didn't feel like I was depressed because I've been depressed before, but I was just like really down. I wasn't resilient. I had an inability to cope with life in general, and I just really didn't know what was wrong with me. I was also having some quite significant gynae issues. So I had this horrible dragging sensation, and like heavy periods and just lots of like PMS. Eventually, after fighting with my GP for a couple of years, I finally got referred to a gynecologist, who basically said I had these massive fibroids, and they needed to be dealt with. During this time, they also said that the mental health, depression, anxiety, like really bad anxiety issues I was having, was down to PMDD, which is premenstrual dysphoria disorder. It's classified as a psychiatric condition, and it's all around your periods and your hormones. So I had my hysterectomy, and they took my ovaries because of the PMDD, and that ultimately put me straight into surgical menopause. So at my surgical checkup, I was complaining to the gynecologist that I was obviously having some menopause symptoms. At the end of the day, they've taken my ovaries away, so of course I've gone straight into surgical menopause. I was having some hot flushes, I was having night sweats, just general, menopausal symptoms. So he said because of the PMDD, I couldn't go on HRT. He said it would bring the PMDD symptoms back and just make things worse. So he suggested that I went on a drug called Livio, which is made out of yams, and that would help with some of the symptoms. And then once the symptoms have subsided, probably in about a year's time, I could come off it, and that would be the end of it. So that's what I did. I went on it, and after about a year or so, my hot flushes, or so I thought, stopped, and I just decided to come off it. At this point, nobody's mentioned any of the issues that I might have if I didn't have ovaries and I wasn't on any form of HRT. And so I just, continued to cope with everything else that was going on. At no point did anybody ever suggest that anything that had happened before or after my hysterectomy might actually have been perimenopause, or that a number of the symptoms that I was having would actually be menopause symptoms, and that there was a way to reduce all the symptoms and suffering that I was having, and that was through HRT, but that wasn't mentioned. So I'm still having allergy issues, I'm still having gut issues, I've got sore hips, I've got a frozen shoulder, and I was genuinely just feeling really, really unwell. I would go to work, I would come home, I would crawl into bed, I would just sleep all my days off, which is really difficult when you've got 4 and 5 kids in the house at a time. And I was just like really, really struggling. In the end, I paid privately and went to see a gastroenterologist to see if I could try and get some help with my gut symptoms. So I had a colonoscopy, had some polyps removed, and then they basically said I needed to go gluten-free and lactose-free, and that would help things. And over a period of time, it really did. The coming off the gluten really made a big difference. It made a massive difference to my energy. It also made a difference to my gloating. I don't advocate everybody going gluten-free, but for some people like me who have gluten intolerance, and they're non-celiac, sometimes that just really helps with some of the health issues that they're dealing with. So fast forward to 2017, life's going great, or so I think, But I'm having lots and lots of issues. I'm still having problems with my hips. I've been having cortisone injections in my hips. I've got problems with my shoulder. I'm having cortisone and steroid injections in my shoulder. And I am really struggling. I have put a lot of weight on. I'm struggling to walk. I'm short of breath all the time. I'm having palpitations. And I'm feeling really, really unwell. I've got pain in all my joints. So my GP refers me to see a rheumatologist. She sees me, says maybe you've got rheumatoid arthritis, let's do some x-rays, we'll do some other tests. Despite the fact I've actually tested negative to rheumatoid arthritis in the past, we still go through the process, and she puts me on very high doses of naproxen, which is an anti-inflammatory, and oh boy. So I'm backwards and forwards to the doctor, and I'm really not getting anywhere. And it gets to the point where I'm breathless all the time. I can barely walk for 2 to 3 minutes. My joints hurt. I'm feeling absolutely dreadful, and I'm having these horrible palpitations and this sense of, like, I guess impending doom would be the term that I would use. Anyway, I'd had a couple of episodes where I was having this feeling in my chest, and I thought it was the bass on the TV. So my darling hubby loves a deep bass, and I really don't like it. It just, like, affects me from a sensory perspective. But anyway, this particular day, I was cooking in the kitchen, and he was in the family room, which is basically part of the kitchen, and he's watching something on the TV, and I just said to him, you need to turn the bass down, like, seriously, it's horrendous, I can feel it in my chest. And he said, the bass is down. And I'm like, no, I can feel it, it's really, really bad. And he looked at me and he said, are you okay? And I said, oh, no, I'm not really feeling great. And then when we sort of checked my pulse and a couple of other things, my pulse rate was like 164 beats a minute, and it was really fast. So he said, I'll call an ambulance. I was like, nah, I used to be a paramedic, don't want to waste the time, I'm fine. Put me in the car, we'll go to the emergency department. So that's what we did. So we get to the emergency department and boom, straight into resus. I've got a really rapid heart rate, really high blood pressure. I'm having these, like, really random palpitations. So they're like, oh my God, we think we're having a heart attack. So they give me a pile of aspirin, and they send me off to the coronary care unit. And the reason that I'm laughing is because it turns out that a lot of my symptoms were due to the fact that I have a salicylate intolerance and I'm allergic to aspirin. So as you can imagine, when they gave me the aspirin, they made me worse. They didn't know it, I didn't know it, but ultimately there was a silver lining in all of this, because ultimately there wasn't actually anything wrong with my heart. I had a heap more tests done, including an echo. And they decided it was my breathing, it was respiratory. And so in my late 40s, they were like, oh, it must be emphysema, we'll refer you to see a respiratory specialist. And again, silver lining, thank God they did, because I went in to see him, and he's like, within the first 10 minutes, yeah, you don't have emphysema, but you do have an immune condition. And it's all related to salicylates in food, and you need to go and see an immunologist. I'm seeing the immunologist tomorrow. I'll do you an urgent referral. There is a long wait because there's only one on the course, but we'll get you in to see her as soon as possible. So I think that was the November of 2017. So I get my referral, and they say you're an urgent case. However, there's a 7-month wait for Cat 2. So I was like, right, okay, well, there's not a lot I can do. I'm not in a financial position that I can pay to go and see somebody, so we'll just have to sit it out in the public health system. On the 13th of February, I got a phone call from the immunology clinic saying that there was a appointment that Thursday, cancellation if I wanted it. So I was like, hell yeah, of course I want it. So I come to go down the stairs in my excitement to tell my husband that I had got a cancellation and I was going to see somebody, and I slipped. And as I went down on the step, I knew I'd done something really bad and I couldn't get up. So very long story short, I had to call the ambulance, went into the hospital. They kept telling me it was a ligament. did an x-ray. Next thing I know, they're pumping me full of morphine. I'm in a CT scanner and I've got a catastrophic grade 6 fracture of my tibial plateau on my tibia. That leads to surgery, 7 months not able to put any weight on it, 7 months off work, lots of other issues. But the silver lining was that the immunology team came to see me while I was in the hospital, and they did all the tests there and then, and basically discovered that I do have this issue with my salicylates, and also that I'm severely allergic to house dust mites, and hence started my journey.
So my journey looked like looking at what it was I could do for myself and what I could do in relation to food and nutrition that would actually help with my salicylate intolerance. Salicylates are found all around us. They're in all sorts of chemicals, they're in things you use in the house, but they're also in food. So fruit and veg that is very fresh, that's not ripe, has a really high level of salicylates. And there are some people like me who basically struggle to get rid of them out of our body and to, I guess, detoxify ourselves. And what happens is they work like a bucket. And so the bucket starts to fill up with these salicylates. And ultimately, you get to a point where your bucket is overflowing. So the symptoms from that and the symptoms that I was having from the severe house dust mite allergy sort of all combined together. And then the histamine issues that I was having due to the menopause just created the perfect storm of immunological issues, allergy and sensitivity, and ultimately reactions, to the point that I just seemed to be reacting to everything that I ate and everything that I came into contact with. The immunologist put me on a number of medications, H1 and H2 blockers, and basically started a desensitization program for the house dust mite allergy. And what I learned over time was that the foods that were really high in salicylate, thinking that I was being healthy and trying to get on a healthy diet and trying to reduce my weight, meant that I was actually eating a significant amount of them, and I was just contributing to filling my bucket up. And so I've had to learn how to adjust that. What I've also discovered is that food is medicine. So it can do some great things for you, and it can do some not so great things for you, depending on your genetics and also your microbiome. And I realised that I've also got a leaky gut. Now, I don't know what came first. Did the leaky gut cause the histamine and the allergy issues? Did the allergy issues cause the leaky gut? Is this all connected to the menopause? I think it is. I think it's like a chicken and egg scenario, and we'll probably never know, but we just have to deal with the situation that we're currently in and manage it the best we can. So I continue to stay on the medication, and I also continue to try and manage my salicylate levels through my diet. The lack of HRT that I had due to the diagnosis of PMDD, which, through the last 2 to 3 years worth of research that I've done around perimenopause and menopause, I realised that, I probably didn't have PMDD. I probably was actually perimenopause. If all the dots had been connected by all the specialists and all the treating GPs and doctors that I saw, then they would have realised that they already knew I had ovarian insufficiency. I'd already been told at 42 that I literally had no eggs left. And while my egg count should have been decreasing, it shouldn't have been as low as it was. So, if I've no eggs, then clearly my ovaries aren't functioning the way a 40-year-old woman should do. And so therefore I am in perimenopause. And now I look back and realise that all my symptoms were connected to that. But the biggest issue that I had from having the surgical menopause and not getting any HRT was the fact that I ended up with osteopenia and osteoporosis, and that's why I broke my leg. And it's taken me 10 years to get with the right person, get back on the right treatment, and suffering a really significant life-altering fracture before I could get onto that path. And I'll come back to that in another video. So my interest in nutrition and then literally trying to manage my salicylate issues and to heal myself, I guess, led me to like really wanting to look into what nutrition can do for us, and that ultimately led me to doing my bachelor's degree in nutritional science. And so the more I studied and the more I researched, the more I was really interested in how nutrition impacts our health, positive and negative, where the gut-brain connection comes into this, how the microbiome affects us. And then obviously when I've graduated, then I've sort of moved into that area. And to me, there's this massive link with all of these things, and perimenopause and menopause. That led me then to starting Guts to Solution, and to where we are today. I think one of the big things for me and the reasons for doing this is I am on social media quite a lot, and I get so frustrated with inaccurate, non-factual information. You know, at the end of the day, people on social media can make their life look perfect, but most people's life isn't perfect. And even though I've got a degree in nutrition and a background in healthcare, my life's not perfect either. I try very hard to have a good diet, but I like chocolate, I like a drink, I like to celebrate and socialise, and food's the way that I do that. I am overweight, probably considered to be in the obese category, and I've been working really hard to fix that. But like everybody else, I'm really struggling with that menopausal weight gain around my middle, and I'm struggling to shift it. When you add in the issues that I've had with the injury to my leg, it really sort of impacted my mobility. It caused some weight gain, and I like a drink, and I find that alcohol doesn't like me. I get very frustrated with all the gym bros, male and female, that are out there that, you know, some of them do have been and done further study in nutrition, but there's a lot of people that haven't, but they're out there giving nutritional advice. You know, dietitians are regulated, nutritionists aren't regulated. You can go and do an online certificate in nutrition. You don't have to have a bachelor's degree, and you can call yourself a nutritionist. The issue is that they're trying to suggest a lot of times that, you know, you have to have this perfect diet. Well, you don't, and it's almost impossible. The way that we've been introduced to food and the way that we've been raised over the last few years, the rise of ultra-processed food, easy access to, you know, Uber Eats, fast food, that sort of thing, has changed the way that we eat and how we manage our diets and our nutrition, and it is causing a lot of health issues. But the solution is not restriction, and the solution is not that you have to have a perfect diet. I can tell you from absolute experience that when you're trying to maintain a severe diet that's outside a normal pattern of eating, that it's not sustainable. And the way that we get on top of our health in relation to using nutrition, and the way that we manage our weight, and the way that we make ourselves feel better, is actually through a balanced approach. And it's about what works for you. We're not small men. We have the added issue of our hormones, and we've got the added issue of perimenopause and menopause, which are contributing to our weight gain, to the where we move our weight from. You know, once upon a time, you might have put your weight on your hips and your thighs. Now you're putting it on your belly. You've got an increase in visceral fat. And you know, with all due respect, calories in, calories out, and going to the gym more is not going to resolve that issues, because there are a lot of more complex biochemical and hormone related issues. But we can certainly get ourselves to a point where we're, you know, on the healthiest diet that we can be on. And when I'm talking about diet, I'm not talking about restriction, and I'm not talking about weight loss. I'm literally just talking about the food we eat, because we actually eat a diet. We shouldn't be doing a diet. So what we eat are the things that really impact our health, our well-being, and the gut-brain connection has a massive impact on this as well. I'll talk more about this later, but I just want to say that, you know, I don't believe there's anybody out there that has a perfect 100% diet. I certainly don't. I do try to be healthy, and I try to eat a healthy Mediterranean diet. I try 80-20, but I do like my chocolate from time to time. I like, you know, to be able to go out, have a really nice dinner, eat that dessert if I want to eat it, have a glass of wine, have a glass of champagne, have a cocktail or a sneaky little vodka over the weekend if the weather's great, floating around in my pool. And I just really just want to emphasize that it doesn't make you a failure if things don't go to plan 100% of the time, because none of us are perfect. Even as a nutritionist, I don't always have the perfect diet. And, being a postmenopausal woman, I'm still really struggling with my weight and the belly fat. And that's really why I wanted to get on here and just be open and honest about it and just talk about how it really is. Because I think there's a lot of people out there that feel like they're an utter failure and they can't understand why they don't have the body of a 50-year-old supermodel, or they're really restricting what they're eating and they've cut back on everything and they're doing everything that they can and the weight's still not coming off. It's not you, it's biology. And you're not a failure. And even those of us that have qualifications in this are still struggling, particularly perimenopause and menopause. So I'm here for you. I'm going to tell you what's and all what it's like. I'm going to give you the facts, not the bullshit. It's not going to be bro science, it's going to be real science. So if you've got any questions, if any of this resonates with you, drop me a DM, pop something in the comments, and let's move forward on this journey together.